Welcome to the meeting of the Scrutiny Committee for Community Customer Services and Service Delivery, held by a remote video link on Wednesday, the 23rd of March. Welcome to this committee. We're joined today by officers of democratic services, legal services, community services policy, and the performance management team. Please note that Councillor Boutrop gives her apologies, and therefore I'm acting as the chair today. I've appointed Councillor Smith as vice chair for this evening's meeting, and I seek approval of the committee for this by members nodding to indicate approval. Thank you. Can I now ask Councillor Smith, please, to conduct the roll call?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Boutrop, I have apologies. Councillor Lee, obviously you're here. I have apologies for Councillor Bennett. Councillor Bradbury.
Present.
And you're substituting for Councillor Sweatman. Councillor Cartwright. Councillor Chapman.
Present.
Councillor Clark.
Present.
Councillor Dempsey, we've got apologies. Councillor Edwards. Councillor Eggleston.
Present.
Substituting for Councillor Dempsey. Councillor Ellis.
Present.
Councillor Hussain. He has sent apologies in case he couldn't make it. Councillor Knight.
Present.
Substituting for Councillor Boutrop. Councillor Phillips.
Present.
Councillor Pulfer.
Present.
Councillor Smith, and I'm here. Councillor Sparaski.
Present.
Councillor Stockwell.
Present.
Substituting for Councillor Bennett, and Councillor Sweatman has sent apologies. I believe there is 3 cabinet members, portfolio holders, Councillor Balsey, Councillor Demir and Councillor Webster present. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I've just got a slight technical problem, so I'm just going to have to mute my turn my video off just for a moment while I sort my computer out. Apologies. Apologies for that. That is sorted. Thank you, Councillor Smith, for that. Can I please ask Tom Clark, can I go to the legal officer, Tom Clark, to provide a meeting explanation?
Thank you, Chairman. We're meeting virtually given the high COVID rates we still have. This is an advisory meeting and not a decision-making meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I go to item number 2 on the agenda, which Councillor Smith has really covered, but to note substitutes in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 4, substitutes at meetings of the committee. I've got Councillor Stockwell for Councillor Bennett, Councillor Knight for Councillor Boutrop, and Councillor Eggleston for Councillor Dempsey, and Councillor Bradbury for Councillor Sweatman. Item 3 on the agenda, to receive apologies for absence. I've got apologies for have been received from Councillor Bennett, Councillor Boutrop, Councillor Dempsey, and Councillor Sweatman, and Councillor Hussain. To receive item number 4 on the agenda is to receive declarations of interest from members in respect of any matter on the agenda. Members, please raise your hand if you need to indicate any. I see none. Sorry, Councillor Eggleston.
Thank you, Chair. On item number 7, I'd like to declare an interest as I'm leader of Burgess Hill Town Council.
Thank you. I see no other hands raised.
Chairman,
Sorry, Councillor Pulfer.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to say that I too need to issue a declaration of interest because I'm the leader of Haywards Heath Town Council. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no other hands raised. So I move to item number 5 on the agenda, which is to confirm the minutes of the meeting of the committee held on the 2nd of February. Please can I ask members to vote with the yes, no buttons to confirm those minutes. Thank you. We have 8 in favour who are at that committee, and that is a majority. So I move to item number 6 on the agenda, which is to consider any items that the chairman agrees to take as urgent business. I have none. So we're going to move to item 7 on the agenda, which is the proposed community governance reviews for the administrative and electoral arrangements of town and parish councils affected by the outcome of the local government boundary commission's electoral review of Mid Sussex District Council. I'm going to go to Tom Clark, Solicitor and Head of Regulatory Services, and to Terry Stanley, Business Unit Leader of Democratic Services, to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chairman. Terry will give you the detailed introduction. I'd just like to say that what you're being asked to do tonight is to agree to start this process. There's been plenty of matters in the certainly in the Linfield Life to suggest the process has already been undertaken. We will be following, assuming we start it, we will be following what we get back as part of the consultation, and your committee will be involved all the way through in looking at those submissions and where we take it from there. The final decision is taken by council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, members. With permission, Chairman, I think it might be helpful to the committee if I provide just a little background before turning to the specific proposals which are before you this evening. As you may recall, 1 year ago today, on the 23rd of March 2021, the Local Government Boundary Commission for England launched its first public consultation on warding patterns as part of the electoral review of Mid Sussex District Council. This was preceded by several pre-review engagements hosted by the LGBCE and facilitated by MSDC with elected representatives and stakeholders, which I'm glad to report were very well attended. These were with the Council's leadership on the 11th of March 2020, with all political group leaders on the 19th of August 2020, and then there was a briefing for all members of Mid Sussex District Council on the 28th of September 2020, and then parish clerks and nominated parish councillors attended a similar briefing with the LGBCE on the 10th of February 2021. This council provided a comprehensive database of stakeholders to the LGBCE, which the Commission itself used to invite stakeholders to contribute at various stages of the review. The LGBCE will have conducted public communications using various traditional and modern channels, and these were supported by MSDC in similar ways. I'm sure that committee members will have scrutinised the background paper, a link to which was provided at page 14 of your committee papers, entitled LGBCE's Final Recommendations for MSDC. This LGBCE report lists the contributors to the review as individual residents of the district, several MSDC ward members, group leaders of all the political groups currently represented on the council, one political party currently not represented on the council, political associations, a village association, a member of parliament, West Sussex County Council, and 8 parish councils. As the LGBCE's electoral review progressed beyond the first public consultation and its draft recommendations for Mid Sussex were published on the 31st of August 2021, we shared these with all elected representatives via the MIS and via email, and we notified all parish clerks. There then followed a second 10-week public consultation period on the LGBCE's draft recommendations. And as members will know, the LGBCE's final recommendations for Mid Sussex were published and shared with all stakeholders on the 1st of February 2022. This has produced a district warding scheme, which is mostly understandable and is explained in clear English in the LGBCE's final recommendations report. There are, however, as a consequence, a few examples of district and parish warding anomalies and some revised parish electoral arrangements, as detailed within your committee report. In these circumstances, the creation of electoral boundary misalignments that Mid Sussex is entitled by statute to consider, and the mechanism for doing so is through community governance reviews. Community governance reviews are exactly that. They are qualitative reviews conducted through open and substantial consultation with communities. As the draft terms of reference make clear, we will directly notify each local government elector of the review in the affected areas and other stakeholders, including parish councils. And we will invite them to contribute their submissions to the review as to how their preferred proposition would reflect the identities and interests of their community, and how they would provide for improved community engagement, enhanced community cohesion, better local democracy, more effective and convenient delivery of local services and local government. The guidance for respondents, also in your papers, also explains the way in which electors can contribute to the review, and these have been designed to make contributing as straightforward as possible, using an online form or preparing an email or sending us a hard copy written submission. The proposals before you this evening therefore do not relate to any potential outcomes of the reviews. Following evaluation of all validly submitted submissions during the first of 2 public consultation periods, your officer's draft recommendations, i.e. the potential outcomes, would be scrutinised at your meeting in June. Please be assured that your officers will approach these matters based upon facts, but also mindful of the community identity sensitivities that do exist and the plans that parish councils have made. We do not have predetermined outcomes in mind, and we will carefully consider all the submissions that we receive for any given proposition. This evening, therefore, you are asked only to agree that democratic engagement exercises in the form of community governance reviews take place, as we are obliged to do given the situation that has arisen, and you're being asked to agree the terms of reference and the guidance for respondents for these reviews. It is right, surely, that these affected communities are fully consulted in this way so that community governance reviews can be conducted thoroughly, taking the views of all residents into account and to the highest possible standard following government guidance. Your officer's recommendations are set out at page 9 of your committee papers, and we commend them to you. Chairman, Tom and I will be glad to answer any questions members may have at this stage in the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My proposal, because there's a whole variety of things we need to consider here, I propose that we consider this report and take it in the order in which the recommendations come on page 9. So I propose for clarity that we first of all debate the item in relation to the proposed community governance for Burgess Hill and Haywards Heath Town Councils and the consequential consideration for the parish councils of Anstey, Staplefield, Lindfield and Lindfield Rural. So I invite members to speak on this. I can see Councillor Bradbury.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Chairman, I'd like to propose an amendment to 3.1, if I may, please.
Yes, do go ahead.
Thank you. My amendment is to strike out the word agree and replace it with postpone to 2025. So that paragraph would read, postpone to 2025, the proposed CGRs, etc.
Thank you, Councillor Bradbury.
Would you like me to speak to that now, Chairman?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Chairman, I think this is a really important matter. We've heard Mr. Stanley speak very eloquently, I've got to say, about the need for this to be, of how important this is to communities. And we've also heard him speak extensively about how important consultation is in this. And I couldn't agree more with him. And he's read out a long list of people that we have consulted with. However, the main part of this CGR, of course, represents a community that does not yet exist. That's the community that will live in the Northern Arc. Now, it's impossible at the moment to consult with that community because it doesn't exist. That's just a complete statement of fact. My proposal to delay till 2025 will give time for some community to start there, and therefore then there will be some people to consult. And of course, this is entirely in line with the option that's considered in paragraph 35 on page 14 of Mr. Stanley's paper, which considers that as an alternative. Chairman, I think one of the things to consider carefully about this is what governance might the people who are going to live in the Northern Arc want? And there are several possibilities. Certainly, for example, they may want to maintain the status quo where they're part of the Parish Council of Anstine Staplefield. That certainly is one outcome. They may want to join with the town boundary of Burgess Hill and become part of Burgess Hill. That also is a possible outcome, and one that seems to be recommended in this paper. Of course, there are other possible outcomes. One possible other outcome is they may decide they want to form their own parish council. And I think we've seen in the past where, certainly I know with my history with Bolnor Village, Chairman, which of course isn't part of my district council ward, but is part of my county council boundary, that many people who live in Bolnor Village, I know, feel that they should have been entitled to form their own separate parish council. Of course, that ship now has sailed a long time ago. But I do also, I go back, Chairman, if I may, to the time when I was chairman of Anstine Staplefield Parish Council, and I felt there was an anomaly in the area, the northern half, and I use that word half, not as a mathematical half, but the northern portion of Belbridge Road, which is currently in Anstine Parish Ward. And it seemed to me at the time that was an anomaly, and I can remember well asking the parish clerk to write to all the residents that were in Belbridge Road, that in the parish ward of Anstine, to ask them would they like us to consider at the next boundary review moving them from Anstine into Burgess Hill. And very interestingly, of the replies that we got, exactly half wanted to move into Burgess Hill and exactly half wanted to stay in Anstine. Apart from one, well, I remember there's one other response that said he didn't mind. So I think, so to try and judge at the moment what the outcome of what that community might want, I think is beyond the bounds of possibility. I think there's another compelling reason why we need to give this much more time before we dive into it, Chairman, and that's in respect of parish council budgets. And several parish councils, apart from Anstine Staplefield, are affected. I'm speaking about that one because it's the one that's part of my ward and therefore the one that I know most about. Others may want to speak about how their parish councils are affected. But certainly, I know in the case of Anstey and Staplefield, they recently took out a public works loan of £100,000 to support the development of the Anstey Centre. Now, that clearly that loan and the repayments of it are predicated on their existing tax base. So to have a dramatic change to their existing tax base with very little notice, I think would not be a really acceptable way to go. So therefore, I hope colleagues will see the sense in what is a pause. Right? You know, we're not saying this doesn't need to be done. What I'm saying is it needs to be done when there's, you know, when more time has passed and those circumstances that I just delineated are now more, will then make more sense and will be more amenable to those people involved. I'll leave it there, Chairman, if I may. I'd like to look for a seconder. I don't know if anyone's happy to second my amendment.
Yes, I would be a pleasure to second it.
So that was Councillor Clark, was that?
Yes. Yeah, sorry, I just had a bit of trouble. Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Clark.
I'd just like to add that, because I agree with what a lot of Councillor Bradbury said, my ward's more affected by about 100 houses. And we've had a lot of response from the residents already. As much as they would gain two very good councillors from Franklin's ward, Councillor Pulfer and myself, I don't think they want us. And my concern is that in 5 years' time, we'll be redoing it and moving them back, because both wards will have developments either north or south of them over the next 5 years. And I feel that strongly about moving people around, especially against where they want to be. But I feel very strongly that it's happening now, and we'll be doing it again, and they won't know whether they're voting in Franklin's Village, Bentswood, Linfield High Street, and I don't think they deserve that. And they feel that they're part of that Linfield and Linfield ward and want to stay there. So that's why I'm supporting the delaying of this till more of the houses are finished being built. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. I'm just going to check. I would like just to take some advice from the legal officer. Thank you, councillors. So for now, what we are debating is the proposed amendment that Councillor Bradbury has put. So we're speaking to that amendment. So I'm going to go, the first person I can see now is Councillor Eggleston.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I personally don't believe we should postpone until 2025. I think there are a number of reasons why we can move forward with the corporate governance review for both Burgess Hill and Haywards Heath now. I mean, firstly, as we know, not all of the Northern Arc is in Anstey and Staplefield. So there is development taking place that's currently within the boundary of Burgess Hill already. And, you know, it's a fact that the developments that take place in the land that's currently within the parish of Anstey and Staplefield is contiguous with the development that's already taking place in the Northern Arc in the Burgess Hill boundary. To all intents and purposes, it's one place, and that is undeniable. That's the first thing to say. The second thing is that, you know, there must be cases up and down the country where there is land that's undeveloped that's going to be developed at a future date, and the residents will find themselves in one parish or another. And we could end up, if there are delays in development, you could end up with, a situation where no decision is made. People move into an area because they want to live in a particular area, not because it's in one parish or another. The other thing, if Anstey and Staplefield, I didn't quite follow Councillor Bradbury's point on the loan and the tax base. Maybe he'd come back and clarify for me. But as I understand it, they've taken out a loan based on their current tax base, in which case they can afford to repay the loan out of their current tax base. And if that's the case, the position of the rest of the Northern Arc is unaffected by that loan. They can repay it anyway. So if I've understood that correctly, then I don't think that the tax argument is particularly relevant to the case here. It is a fact that when the District Council and Burgess Hill Town Council embarked upon the master plan for Burgess Hill, and looking at the development of the Northern Arc, it was always understood that this was about Burgess Hill as being a growth area for housing. Councillor Bradbury's nodding his head in disagreement, but that we talk about the Burgess Hill growth area, we don't talk about the Anstey and Staplefield growth area. So just make that point. And I think this change, and we're only doing a review, and we will have to see what the outcome of that review is. This change reflects the vision, aims and objectives of the District Council, that Burgess Hill as a growth area for housing, so that the housing around Burgess Hill forms part of that community where where there is obviously, and I would say this, wouldn't I, but there is obviously a closer connection between the town of Burgess Hill, which is a primary built up area, compared to the smaller villages of Anstey and Staplefield, which is nowhere near the Northern Arc. So my view is that we should support the officer's recommendation and take this forward into review so that we're ready for the 2023 elections, because otherwise we face an even more anomalous situation when we get to the district and parish elections in 2027 or beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bradbury, do you want to come back?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I would, please. So first of all, just to clarify on the money side, any boundary review that incorporates Anstey, Staplefield and Haywards Heath is certainly going to look at polling district IE, and the loss of polling district IE to Anstey and Staplefield Parish Council would be significant. So I think that's clear enough on the money side. I have to say on the, I mean, as he will know, I've given unstinting political support to the development of the Northern Arc since 2008 when I first came across it. But I'm absolutely amazed that he doesn't think that the residents of the new Northern Arc are going to be worthy of being consulted. I'm absolutely astounded to hear that. So his assumption that this is just going to be part of Burgess Hill come what may really just flies in the, what's the point of doing a consultation if you've already decided the outcome? So let's wait for we've only got to wait for 2 years, one electoral cycle. Let's just wait and consult. Let's see what the residents and the community want, not what Burgess Hill Town Council wants. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I'd like to go to Councillor Stockwell.
Thank you, Chairman. I hope you can hear me all right. Yes, I mean, while the Northern Arc is a huge area and is very difficult to consult with residents if they've not yet moved in, I'm looking at the other area in the parishes, the small parishes of Linfield and Linfield Rural. Now, these are very ancient parishes, and while they're not very big, any adjustment to them is going to have a financial effect. Not only that, the people who live in these parishes live there because they want to. They don't necessarily want to live in Haywards Heath. And I'm quite sure that many of you will have seen letters from residents when they've become aware of what is being proposed. While, as Councillor Clark says, around this area, there's also a lot of development going on. So come the next electoral cycle, things may change yet again. So I just think that this is, for a very small area, it looks like a very small area, but to the parish council means a lot, and it means a lot to the residents in those areas. I think that we're doing this far too quickly, and we'd be far better off waiting until the developments that are expected to be completed are there, and all residents can be consulted. So I'm much in favour of leaving this over to 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stockwell. I see Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, in the report, it actually says your officers do not recommend this approach. I wonder if it's possible to ask them why.
Can I go to, is that to Terry?
Yes, quite simply, for the reasons that Councillor Eggleston was explaining, that, you know, we have this situation before us now. We know that, you know, it's going to have to be addressed at some point. It makes sense to deal with it when the situation is created rather than waiting several years. A number of members have referred to things changing, and that of course is true in terms of developments, but we're unlikely to see another electoral review in the coming few years. And so, you know, it just administratively makes sense to us to deal with this in a timely way. But as the report also indicates, you know, if members are minded to wait another electoral cycle, that is something that of course can be done. So it's really basically the reasons that Councillor Eggleston was alluding to. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Spiracci.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just have a question, and forgive me if it's me being ignorant, but is there not a danger that if we postpone, then we will be making the same argument at the date we postpone to? Could we not just keep kicking the can down the road? Because there's always going to be new houses being built, right? Or am I missing something?
Terry Stanley, would you like to?
I think Councillor Spiracci is exactly right. It occurred to me that, you know, if we have to approach this again in 25, you know, we could very well be in a situation where people are saying, well, not all of the Northern Arc has been built yet, so we need to wait for another electoral cycle. Another reason why, you know, it's the sort of thing that you approach in a timely way as the situation presents itself, really.
Thank you. I can see Councillor Bradbury.
Chairman, thank you for letting me come back. Just to be clear, I'm not. My amendment doesn't say let's postpone this indefinitely. It does say very specifically postpone to 2025. That's for one electoral cycle, as per paragraph 35 in the officer's report. So there's no intention here of kicking the can down the road. It does say postpone to 2025. I hope that's clear.
Yes, that clarifies it. Thank you, Councillor Bradbury. I can see Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chairman. To be honest, this just sounds like a cash grab for Anstar, in my opinion. All the work's always been towards the Burgess Hill Northern Arc. We are currently working on the Burgess Hill Outdoor Centre for sport, not the Anstar Centre for community sport, because if you're not going to change the boundary, you may as well call that Anstar. So you know, we're working towards Burgess Hill Northern Arc, and that's how it should be. I don't think any residents would care when they move here that they're moving to Burgess Hill. I mean, if you look at the map, they know they're moving to Burgess Hill, they'll use Burgess Hill's facilities. So let's just behave here and just keep it for Burgess Hill. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Eggleston. I think you're muted.
My apologies. I mean, the reality is, Chairman, that if we set a policy this evening to postpone till 2025, there's nothing to prevent a council in 2025 coming along and postponing it again. So we do run, we may not, none of us may be there in 2025, but we do run the risk of exactly kicking the can down the road. And I think we're always then, as Terry Stanley said, we're always going to be facing the problem of development, of houses being not built, so no residents there to consult. And I think we've got a situation today which is quite clearly defined, and we know geographically, strategically, and from an infrastructure standpoint, certainly what Burgess Hill will look like and what Haywards Heath will look like, despite the fact that some houses haven't been developed. And we can move forward on the basis of a strategic view of what these communities should look like and where the centre of identity is. And I do think we should be supporting the officer's recommendations tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Eggleston. I mean, a lot of points have been made, for and against this. My understanding, and I would just like clarification from the solicitor of the council. So my understanding is that an amendment has been put. Well, I've just seen Councillor Clark has raised his hand. Can I ask Councillor Clark to speak?
Thank you. I just wanted to. I'm not quite sure on this, but the outdoor sports, I thought it's for Mid Sussex as well. It's not just for Burgess Hill; it's for Mid Sussex. But I thought it was also in Hurstby Point and Sayers Common. So we're not just in Burgess Hill. I just thought I'd clarify that position for Mr. Chapman. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Chapman.
Thank you.
Chairman, on your request for clarification, the only thing we've got is a motion in connection with 3.1, which is to postpone to 2025 the proposed CGRs to consider administrative and electoral arrangements for Burgess Hill and Haywards Heath Town Councils and consequential considerations with the parish councils of Anstey and Staplefield, Linfield and Linfield Rural. So that's what's on the table.
Okay, thank you. So my understanding is that should we then therefore vote on that now, Tom Clark, Mr.
Yes,
Clark?
yeah, vote on that and then we can move to 3.2, which relates to East Grinstead.
So if nobody else has raised their hand to speak, I'd like you to ask people to vote on the amendment for 3.1 that Councillor Bradbury has put for postponing the proposed CGRs to 2025. Can I ask you to vote now, please?
Sam Smith.
So there were 8 votes for that, no, 8 votes for and 4 against. So Councillor Bradbury's amendment to postpone the CGRs has been carried. We now move to 3.2 to debate this, which is to agree the proposed CGR to consider the councillor numbers and ward boundaries for East Grinstead Town Council. So I invite members to comment on that, on East Grinstead.
Chairman, perhaps I could clarify that this has been requested by East Grinstead Town Council.
Councillor Phillips.
Thank you. Can I propose that we accept the officer's recommendation on this, please?
Thank you. Do I need to get a seconder for that, Mr. Clark?
Yes, Chairman.
Can I ask for a seconder? Councillor Clark.
Yes, I'd like to second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. So we need to move to a vote on 3.2. So what we have in front of us today is to agree the proposed CGR to consider councillor numbers and ward boundaries for East Grinstead Town Council. So for 3.2, we have 11 in favour and 1 abstention. Now we move to 3.3, the recommendation 3.3, which is to agree we only need to agree 1 draft terms of reference and guidance for respondents, which have been the subject of consultation with affected town and parish councils. So that is Appendix C in our papers. It's the draft terms of reference in relation to East Grinstead.
Chairman, you could move that from the chair, I think, and then we can vote on it.
Okay, I'd like to move that from the chair. I see nobody wants to speak about that. So can we agree the draft terms of reference and guidance for respondents for East Grinstead? I'm sorry. I've just been told that Councillor Bradbury has indicated he'd like to speak.
Thanks, Chair. I thought you were looking for a seconder, so I was offering a second, that's all.
Sorry, thank you, Councillor Bradbury. I'm moving it from the chair, so I'm asking people to vote. There were 11 votes in favour and 1 abstention for 3.3. I'm going to move now to recommendation 3.4, and I would like to propose actually a minor amendment to that. I'd like to propose to move that from the chair. I'd like to propose that it reads, authorise the head of regulatory services to make minor amendments to terms of reference in consultation with the chairman and the portfolio holder for this committee, if additional matters arise and as otherwise may prove necessary during the period of the CGR. I'm looking for a seconder for that. I see Councillor Stockwell.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yes, Chairman, I'll second that for you. No problem.
Thank you. Does anybody want to speak on that? Councillor Eggleston.
Sorry, I don't want to speak on this item. I just want to flag up that I'd like to ask Terry Stanley a question about the amendment in 3.1, but so I'll wait until others have had an opportunity.
Okay. Does anybody want to speak on 3.4? I mean, my proposed amendment is just to make, make minor amendments.
So I think we can vote on that then, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Can we please vote now? Oh, Councillor Chapman has raised his hand.
Oh, sorry, just a real quick one for Mr. Stanley. In the appendix of Burgess Hill, there's a diagram, I believe on page 8, which says the proposed district boundaries, and that lists Meads and Victoria all as one. But I think in the latest, findings, it was that Victoria would now be separate from Meads ward. So I just wanted to say that because I didn't want this, if this was a document that goes out, I wouldn't want the wrong diagram to be shown to people. That's all. Thank you.
I mean, my understanding is because we haven't approved that CGR, that doesn't count. Is that right, Mr. Clark?
Yes, we're not doing the ones for Burgess Hill and Haywards Heath until 2025.
Right. Thank you. So where we were was voting on 3.4 on authorising the head of regulatory services to make minor amendments and to consult in consultation with the chairman and portfolio holder for this committee if additional matters arise and as otherwise may prove necessary during the period of the CGR. That was passed unanimously with 12 in favour. Thank you. So now we go to 3.5, which asks us to note that further reports would be provided as this council's draft and final recommendations are available at later stages of the reviews. So the reviews will come back to us about East Grinstead. Do we need to vote on this, Councillor?
Yes, please. But only in relation to East Grinstead.
Yes, but only, yes, in relation to East Grinstead. We have 10 in favour and 2 abstentions per 3.5.
Chairman, I believe Councillor Eggleston has a question.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. Just for confirmation, really, that if we commence the CGR in 2025 for all of those parishes, that we would definitely be on track to implement the changes by the 2027 district and parish elections.
Yes, indeed. With permission, Chairman, I'll answer that. By doing it in 2025, we would timetable it to complete within 12 months, and it would have appropriate time to proceed to council, governance orders and the rest of it in order to take effect in 2027.
And sorry, just one supplementary, because looking at the timetable that did exist until the amendment, if the CGR went through earlier than 2027, does the administrative change take effect then, or only when the elections take place?
The administrative arrangements take effect at the local government elections.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see nobody else to speak on this item. So I now move to item 8 on the agenda, which is the Equality and Diversity Progress Report 2021. I'd like to go to Neil Barton for his report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This is the annual Equality and Diversity Report for 2021. When our Equality and Diversity Scheme was approved in 2020, it was agreed that this committee would receive an annual report. It also helps us to show that we're still meeting the requirements of the Equality Act. So the report is split by the 9 protected characteristics in the Equality Act, things like people's age, sex, race and disability. Our scheme also tries to address disadvantage by virtue of where people live and people with low income and skill level. And it was also agreed in the scheme that we would pick up support for the armed forces community through our equality and diversity work. That's mainly about the Armed Forces Community Covenant and also the bronze level employer recognition scheme that the council has. So as you see by the report, so a lot of the work we've done in respect of supporting the protected groups is about supporting the voluntary and community sector, which continue to be quite badly affected by the pandemic, as do vulnerable people in the district. There's a few initiatives that I'd just like to quickly highlight in the report. One is the second tranche of the COVID recovery grant scheme that we've been implementing. That was a £300,000 scheme over 2 years, half of which went to support community and voluntary groups. So there was another £70,000 paid last year to 17 groups, and we've included some examples in the report. Another thing is the development of the Community Champions Initiative that we started off last year with Citizens Advice. That's to engage with minority groups in the district. That involved Councillor Hussain was quite heavily involved in that. Also wanted to mention the play days on tour that we've done this year in the summer holidays at 9 locations across the district to provide free activities for local families. And then finally also to mention the investment we've made in our property assets to make them more accessible, including the improvements to the council chamber. The report also mentions the work we do in terms of equality and diversity of the council's staff, and that includes the information about the gender pay gap. So hopefully you'll agree there's some good examples of positive things we've done over the year, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your wide-ranging report. So we now go to debate the council's approach to meeting its equality and its responsibilities under the Equality and Diversity Act. I invite members to speak on this. I can see Councillor Stockwell.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it makes for very good reading, and we've got these protected characteristics. The one that's not there, that I'm really disappointed is not there, is on armed forces, whether we are employing armed veterans or reservists. We're signed up to the covenant. We have the bronze recognition scheme applied. We should have the armed forces on there. Then we can go further. We can work our way towards the silver awards. There's no reason why we can't. But I'd like to see the armed forces included within these equalities. So I'm hoping that will be taken forward. Thank you.
Last, would Neil Barton like to come back about that?
Yes, we have made some progress with the armed forces support. We've changed the template for our quality impact assessments, which now include reference to the armed forces community. And we've also we've just issued our latest staff monitoring report, which is on the website, and that we've monitored how many people with an armed forces connection have applied for jobs at the council. And last year there was 15 people with an armed forces connection who applied for jobs. 2 were shortlisted and 1 was recruited. So we've got 1 more member of staff with an armed forces connection. So we'd be happy to talk to Councillor Stockwell about how we might move forward on the employer recognition scheme. We want to first kind of identify what the implications are of going from bronze to silver, but that would be something, perhaps we could meet outside the meeting to discuss that. Thanks.
Did you want to come back, Councillor Stockwell?
If I could, thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, thank you, Neil. It will be good to discuss, because there are a number of things that I feel that we as a council can do to support the armed forces, or those leaving the service and those veterans who are looking for a change of career. And I'll also remind you, which you probably already know anyway, we do guarantee an interview, assuming that they meet the right criteria in the first place, for anyone who has an armed forces background. But I'd love to be able to see, when we look at these reports, how many people that we do actually employ who have that armed forces background. Thank you very much, and we will be speaking. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Bradbury.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. First of all, I'd really like to support what Councillor Stockwell has said, and also welcome Neil's words, which I think were incredibly helpful. It is a really important area. And Chairman, I think probably at this stage, I should probably just declare my interest as Chairman of West Sussex County Council and a former holder of the Armed Forces Covenant Champion in that establishment. And I mention that because during my tenure as Armed Forces Champion, we did manage to get the County Council to achieve Gold Standard Award. And I introduced an Armed Forces Covenant strategy, which is designed in part to support district councils who wish to move up to a higher level. So I'd just like to, put down that marker that help is available and that support is available from the County Council as well, which I hope is helpful, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bradbury. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Chairman. Could I just ask the officer on page 50 on section D, it talks about workplace health. And also just thank you for the report and all the support and the grants they're given. Could I just ask, on 2021, it said 430 employees engaged with the Workplace Health Service for 25 different workplaces. I just wondered, how do they get identified, or how do they advertise that, and where the referrals come from? Because I couldn't actually sort of work out how that gets, because I think that's a fantastic initiative, but just a bit of background of how they get highlighted, or the referrals to that, please.
Neil Barton, would you like to come back, please?
Yeah, this is obviously our wellbeing team that most members will be aware of. So they're quite active in engaging with local businesses to get them to invite the team into their workplace. So the idea is that it's especially difficult to get hold of working age people in terms of helping them with their health and well-being. So that's the way we do it. We engage with local businesses and see if they'd like us to come in and help them out. Also, I don't know if Emma Sheridan would want to say anything on this particular matter.
Emma, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I can certainly add to that, Chair. Thank you. Yes, we do have a dedicated officer within the wellbeing team whose sole role is to work with workplaces. She attends all the local business association networking events and makes connections with businesses that way. Quite often yourselves as members, we do get referrals in to work from businesses with yourselves, which is obviously welcomed. So yeah, Julia will go out to businesses, engage with their HR departments, run workshops and presentations within workplace settings. Obviously, that was a bit difficult over the pandemic, and as such, we moved those sessions to virtual. We saw a huge uptake in terms of our virtual talks and online workshops. I'm pleased to say that Julia is now back face-to-face within workplaces as well. So there's a range of networking opportunities and contacts that we have with businesses, obviously working with our own economic development team. And the connections that we have across the wider council. But if there are any other suggestions in terms of how we can engage businesses further, very, very happy to receive those.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Could I just ask one other question to the officer on page 56 under item 37? It talks about the Burgess Hill, delivered the shed in Burgess Hill, which is a men's mental health project. Which I know do fantastic work, but it says expanding with the kiln. I'm not quite sure what sort of, is that an expansion of the shed or is that another initiative? It says it was awarded a grant of £2,700, just to know what the kiln is. And also in the future, I know you do fantastic work within Mid Sussex Matters magazine. If we could sort of have some information about these wonderful grants and initiatives through that magazine. Thank you.
Would Emma O'Neill like to come back about that?
Yeah, as it kind of alludes to in the report, the shed, the same people who run the shed have now got the kiln as a lease on one of the units at the Martlet Shopping Centre. So it's a similar concept to the Shedding Dean arrangement, but it's just, as I say, based in the Burgess Hill Shopping Centre. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Eggleston.
Oh, yes, thank you, Chair. Just to give a bit more detail on that, because I was involved in helping the kiln set up in the original Argos unit in the Martlet Shopping Centre, which was empty, and we came to a number of arrangements with the landlord, New River Retail, on some empty units there, and the shed had always wanted to have a base in the town centre for the work that they do, but they've extended it out so that they offer quite a few workshops for people in the community, and the Burgess Hill Repair Cafe meets there once a month as well. So it's a very good project, and just as a bit of advertising, on the 9th of April there is an event which the kiln will be hosting, which is about upcycling and community swapping, which I hope you'll come to.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other members wanting to speak. I'd just like to thank officers for this wide-ranging report. And
Chairman.
Oh, Councillor De Mere. Councillor De Mere, Cabinet member.
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to actually.
Yes, do. I can invite you to speak. So, yes, I'd like to ask for your comments, Councillor De Mere.
All I was going to say was I was very pleased with the report, and thank you to the officers for continuing during these challenging COVID times. I was just going to pick up on Councillor Ellis's idea of doing some stories in Mid Sussex Matters, which I will talk to them about, but also to say it is such a wonderful thing they're doing in the shed and the kiln, and I'm rather hoping this can be rolled out, as I know there's a repair cafe in Lindfield, and it would be good if we could roll out something like this across the district, as I know East Grinstead also have something along those lines. So I'm sorry to have butted in, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor De Mere. I'd just like to re-emphasise, thank you for this report, and it's very heartening to see how much of the COVID grants were taken up during these challenging times. So the committee, we're requested to endorse the council's approach to meeting its duties under the Equality Act as evidenced by the Equality and Diversity Progress Report 2021 included at Appendix 1. We're asked to vote on that. So we have 11 votes in favour of it and 1 abstention. So now I move to item 9 on the agenda, which is MSDC Modern Slavery and Human Trafficking Transparency Statement. I'd like to go to Emma Sheridan, the Business Unit Leader for Community Service and Policy and Performance for this item.
Thank you, Chair. As members will recall, in October 2020, this council undertook a notice of motion to pledge for Mid-Sussex to become a slavery-free community. As part of this, the council pledged to ensure that its own business and supply chains were free from slavery. Modern slavery transparency statements are currently mandatory for certain commercial organisations, but are not currently a statutory requirement for public sector organisations. However, this is currently being debated as part of the National Modern Slavery Bill. It is expected that this will become a statutory requirement at some point. In the meantime, many local authorities are preparing for this across the UK and publishing their statements. We believe that this is the right thing to do. The statement will be updated annually and sets out the measures that this council can take to eradicate slavery in our own business and supply chains. The statement has been developed in close collaboration with our shared procurement service to produce this first statement for 22-23. We will obviously continue as officers to work with the shared procurement service and across the council to progress this work and indeed other work related to modern slavery and related issues over the next year. Very happy to take any questions that the committee might have, but hope that the committee will see fit to recommend this to council.
Thank you, Emma. Yes, so we're being asked to consider and review this statement and then refer it on to council. I see Councillor Clark would like to ask a question.
Thank you, Chairman. It's not so much a question, it's something just to say that I'm sort of very proud of this work and what the officers are doing and what the council's doing and what we're trying to do, and I hope this sort of is rolled out throughout the country, as they were saying, and it's all made law. But what brought it home to me, and when I was reading this, was that on the news you hear of the awful things that are happening to the Ukraine people, and they get over the border and there's people trying to enslave people. They're worried about child kidnappers, all sorts of things. Sorry, Councillor Chapman, I didn't think it was funny, but I thought you were laughing. Put me off. But sorry, I'd just like to say that I think this is so important. I'm proud of it, and I worry for those people that is beyond our control. But when they get to this country, I hope that we protect them, as this paper says. But the awful things that are happening to those people, and they think there's awful people hanging around the borders to take advantage of these people. It just shows you how important this document is. That's what I really wanted to say. Sorry, Councillor Chapman, I wasn't being funny about that. I apologise.
Thank you for the points you make, Councillor Clark. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Chairman. Could I just ask Emma, on page 67, it's obviously such an important document, and obviously I support everything that's in this paper, but it says we will ensure relevant staff have access to and are completing mandatory training which supports the Modern Slavery Act. Emma, would it be possible in the future, if we could have something on the online learning portal, just so that we can keep ourselves afresh of, you know, how important this is and the Modern Slavery Act. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely, Councillor Ellis. This important topic is already touched upon in some of the safeguarding training that as members you will have accessed already. Part of our work on this moving forward, and indeed part of the commitment from the motion of notice last year, is that we expand and develop that training. So absolutely, yes, there will be more training on that coming forward in the coming year.
Thank you, Emma, and thank you for all the effort and work you put into the learning pool. It's very helpful, it's very useful, and that would be a great bonus. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands raised. So I'm going to move to the recommendations on page 63. This committee is recommended to review and comment as appropriate on the attached draft modern slavery and human trafficking transparency statement for 2022-23, to refer the statement onto council for adoption. Can we please vote on this now? Thank you. That was passed unanimously. So I'll move to item 10 on the agenda. Is the Scrutiny Committee for Community Customer Services and Service Delivery Work Programme 2021-22 on page 75 to 76. I go to Tom Clark for this.
Thank you, Chairman. What you've got there is a rather truncated report, but it's just to advise the committee that the community governance reviews in Worth and in Hurstpere Point and Sayers Common will be coming back to you for your consideration of the early recommendations.
Thank you. So please can we vote on the yes, no buttons now about accepting that work programme? So we have 11 votes in favour and 1 abstention. I now move to item number 11 on the agenda, questions pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 10.2, due notice of which has been given. I have none, so I'm going to close this meeting and it is 12 minutes past 7. Please can I ask you to remain on camera and with the microphones off until confirmation that the live stream has finished. Thank you.